came from the Nile Valley. It's bittersweet, I smile sadly. Truth rarely seen like child's daddies. Amenhotep, I style flashy. Regarded highly, I'm Selassie. As time is passing, tribes are clashing. I know the ledge, I grow my dreads. My queen's two open legs have golden eggs, I'm hatched. 9 months had to hold my breath. Now I dream so heavy that I broke the bed. Provoke the feds that slaughter the sons. 12 get the 4-5 like a quarter to 1. The war has begun. Latin for sun, the soul and melanites get more of the sun. We the fortunate ones. Got the God in the womb and the Lord in my come, and no more means love. Death is the source that I'm from. Everything that they do, we have already done. Self-taught, my ice a melt salt. Mine high price, I write and sell thought. I felt cloth, I cannot in cotton shopping. Aquaponic, chronic options. Botanizing pot concoction. Earth a thought, her twat is rotten. Knowledge of my art forgotten. Watch the conscious sovereign doctrine. Not dishonest prophet goblins. Boxing out the box, I'm boxed in. Black magic, black yoni, black phallus. How they turn kings and queens to crack addicts. How they make us lose our sight like bad glasses. They know we invented original mathematics. Black magic, treat home like at Sabbath. I can hear beautiful music and bad static. I attract cash in bags like that's Magnus. Last maverick, blast fast like Zab Jab. Black magic, black yoni, black.
Peace, family. Welcome to another episode Underground Railroad Productions. This is your host, Rich. Man, we're going to have a very, very interesting conversation today. I'm going to allow these brothers to introduce themselves first. I want to continue to tell the people, November 19th, Brother Panic is coming to NYC, his first time speaking in over a decade. He will be at the Black Lady Theater in Brooklyn. For more information on that event, you can contact 646-472-4219. or advance tickets are on sale at Eventbrite, www.blackmagic363.eventbrite.com. With that being said, I just had a real good conversation with Supernova and Blue Pill that got, the video in one day, it got over 700 comments. People are very interested in this conversation with Wacka Flocka and our indigenous heritage, quote-unquote black people, indigenous heritage here in America, United States of America. I need more clarity on this because I keep hearing this. At first it sounds preposterous to me. At first it sounds like some people that just wanted to be anything but black, wanted to disassociate themselves with the struggle. So, but more and more research I did, some things made sense, some things still don't make sense to me, but I'm here for you. That's why we're here today, for you brothers to clear the air. There's a significant reason why we're standing in front of this ODB, rest in peace to ODB, this mural right here. I always heard rumors that ODB, his father owned Manhattan, or just him being indigenous and Native America, and that's why they killed him and this and that. Clear the air. What's the deal with ODB and his heritage, his Native American heritage, before we get into the Wacka thing?
Peace, y'all. Peace, y'all. This is Sheik Tunde Sadat Rael. We standing here in front of this beautiful mural of ODB, Osiris. And significance behind Old Dirty Bastard is that he is descendant of the Shinnecock Indians. He is of Shinnecock, quote-unquote, Indian indigenous descent. ODB, RZA, Jizza, 60-Second Assassin, Papa Wu, they're descendants of Woodcam Cuffy, who was one of the last full-blooded Shinnecock, quote-unquote, Indians here in New York City. Their homestead is what we know as Long Island, all right? Now, the thing about Long Island is that even when you look at the Hamptons, which is like the wealthy playground, the wealthy playground of people who have money, who have a lot of paper, that's their land, all right? So that's the Shinnecock, son. Right, the Shinnecock, okay. Exactly. Hamptons. So when you see, right, the Hamptons, right. So when you see brothers like ODB in the street, he would just look like any quote-unquote black persons, so to speak. But that's indicative of all of our ancestors and all of our roots. The vast majority of so-called black people are indigenous, are descendants of the Aboriginal people that was here in North, South, Central America and the adjoining islands. So again, when you look at ODB and the rest of his family, yes, they are indigenous to the land. Also want to make note, Red Man. You know, just like you call the Indian the Red Man is Cherokee, as well as K-Solo. K-Solo as well He's of indigenous bloodline. He also stated on record that he's Cherokee, quote unquote Cherokee Indian.
Indeed. Before we continue, let me just shout out your temple for the people out there that probably want to know what temple you are part of. The Moorish Science Temple of America, number 21-3. You can join these brothers every Sunday at 317 Claremont Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. For more information, you can call these brothers at 347-379-1774 or go to the website www.noblejoeali.org. Yes.
Now, I also want to make a transition with what we're saying because I'm going to pass to my brother so he can elaborate more. ODB, 62nd Assassin, Papa Wu, they all come out of the 5% nation of gods and earths. All right? So when you do the knowledge on the lessons, they talk about the quote-unquote black man of Asia being in the wilderness of North America. And you know that the 5% nation of gods and earths, come out of the NOI, the Nation of Islam, that had a connection to the... What's up, bro? What's going on? How you, man? All right, good to see you. All right, good, man. All right? No doubt. So again, Nation of gods and earths. Those brothers was from the Nation of gods and earths. You know what I mean? When you use the term Asiatic, all right? That came out of NOI, Nation of Islam. Has a connection to the Moorish Science Temple of America. We're gonna go further into it as we demonstrate a lot of our indigenous ancestors in the early 1900s, right, who were reclassified as black, Negro, and colored, joined the Moorish Science Temple of America, joined the Canaanite Temple in Newark, as well as in Chicago. But I'm gonna pass to my brother as far as the language and the lessons, as far as being Asiatic, as far as those brothers being God-body, 5%ers. I'm gonna let the brother, the Sheikh, speak on that.
Yeah, Islam. I'm Grand Sheikh K. Yusef Bey. I want to first give praise to the Most High, who call Allah, and give honor to all divine prophets, and the last prophet in this day and time, Prophet Noble Joe Ali. You know, me, myself, my family is from Louisiana, and in that area is predominantly the Washita de Maya Empire. And my grandmother used to tell me that, you know, we wasn't from Africa, that we was always in the Americas. And, you know, I came from the Nation of gods on earth, so I was dealing with the signs of 1555, John Harley Hawkins brought our ancestors over here. My grandmother would be like, no, we didn't come from Africa, we was already here already. And I used to go against her about it because it went against what I thought my lesson was telling me about, and I come to find out she was actually right. You know what I'm saying? So we definitely indigenous people, and when he's talking about what the lessons, they talk about the lessons, talk about a half-origin man known as Columbus. They said he came over here, he already came in contact with the original people. So in the lesson already talks about that the original people was already in North America, which is the 17 million, with the 2 million Indians making 19 million on the planet for 400 million. So it's definitely a connection there with the indigenous people and us being here already. So, you know, most of us, or when you talk to your grandparents told you, no, boy, we Cherokee, we Blackfoot, we this, that, and the third. Most of all so-called blacks done heard this story in their household before. You know what I'm saying? So it's something that's not far-fetched when he said that he's indigenous and that he's not from Africa, because many of us are already here already. You know what I'm saying? We equal and we intermingle with our brothers and sisters from Africa. You know what I'm saying?
Those are cousins.
So we all one family, but a lot of us are already here already as the indigenous people. And Prophet Noble Joe Ali was one of the first people to bring this information out. In his Moorish Quran, chapter 47, he talked about how we was inhabitants of North, South, and Central America prior to Europeans coming over here. So, you know, we definitely deal with that signs of us being here first.
And with that, let me add on, and with that, he said that we're home. He said the European is not from here. The European is thousands of miles away. He said in the oral prophecies that Moors, you are home. And he also said that we were up and down the Mississippi before the Europeans got here. And we know when we talk about the Mississippi, it goes to the brother said, the ancient mound builders, the Washita, the Choctaw, the Yamasee, the ancient mound builders were dark melanated people with woolly hair, broad nose, broad lips, melanated skin.
Y'all said, I see y'all got some papers in your hand. I know we outside. We had to be outside for this mural, so I had to let the people see this. But I need y'all to show me some evidence. Y'all got some evidence there? What do y'all have in your hand that you can show the people to let them know you're not just running off at the mouth? Show me something, brothers. What y'all got there?
This is not particular evidence. When you talk about evidence, we talking about archaeological digs, in which they find skeletal remains in places like South America, Ecuador. You have the Chinchorro mummies. All of the ancient, oldest artifacts are of people who of Negroid, for lack of a better word, phenotype and skeletal remains. You talk about the Olmec civilization, which is older than any civilization that's here in the Americas. But I want to bring you back up to speed, right? Right now we have, quote unquote, Trump as president. Now, as you know, Trump has Trump casinos and resorts all over. Now, at one time, right, Donald Trump was trying to buy property in Connecticut. And at that particular time, you had a group called the Pequot Nation. And they were forming what's called Foxwoods Hotel and Resorts. So when Donald Trump saw these people, he was like, hold up, they're not Indians, and they don't look like Indians to other Indians. Now, the royal family of that Pequot Nation look like any one of us right here. I got the picture right here to show you, and I'll send it to you.
Oh, and Trump said they don't look like Indians.
Nah, you can see the family right here. And I actually met the family when I went to Foxwoods. I had an opportunity to build with the family. I actually had videotapes and things of that nature.
Meet the Indian owners of the largest casino in the Western Hemisphere, Foxwood Resorts and Casinos, located in Connecticut and handles more than $1 billion a year. In 1993, from fear of competition, Donald Trump said, they don't look like the Indians to me, and they don't look like Indians to Indians. Wow.
And so you can see, those are people, again,
like your aunt and uncle.
Your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, your brother, so on and so forth. Now, I want to drop a little bit of history on the Pequot, because there was a particular time when they were declared pretty much extinct. All right? They were saying extinct, and what was happening was, when they were integrating into mainstream society, they were being reclassified as, quote unquote, black, Negroes, colored, so on and so forth. Now, 16 piece, bruh. In 1641, the Pequot had one of the biggest wars here in the Americas, right? This war was against the Dutch, the Puritans, and Britons. Now, some of those POWs, some of those quote-unquote prisoners of war who were sold into slavery were actually sent to places like the West Indies, Spain, Algiers, and England. So before you had the quote-unquote transatlantic African slave trade, you had what's called the Indian slave trade. They were taking indigenous people here and taking them to other places, Africa, Europe, and if they brought them to Africa, they would sell them back to the Americas as what? Africans. You see what I'm saying? So when you had certain individuals classified as African who were really indigenous to the Americas, when they were escaping, some of them knew where they were going. Some of them were escaping and running back to their tribe or a neighboring tribe. You see what I'm saying? So we have to understand this. Now, those who went to war to the European and those Pequot members who lost those wars, right? The European was so vicious in those wars because they killed a lot of them in their sleep. They beheaded some of the Pequot people and was kicking their head through Manhattan like a soccer ball. And after that, after they celebrated after defeating the Pequot, right? What they did was they started a holiday called Thanksgiving, based off of the defeat of the Pequot people.
That's what it's based on. Yeah.
Exactly. There's many different stories, but according to Pequot lore, according to their literature and their history, Thanksgiving was a celebration of the Puritans and the Europeans celebrating after they chopped off the head of some of the Pequot leaders and was kicking their head through Manhattan. You see what I'm saying? And again, you can see the Pequot could be any one of us. You see what I'm saying? But by way of paper genocide, they said they was extinct. And I'm gonna get into the paper genocide because this is why a lot of us acknowledge ourselves as black, Negro, colored, so on and so forth. We were reclassified because in paper genocide, they said these original tribal members were extinct. We really wasn't extinct, we just got reclassified. You see what I'm saying?
So when did this reclassification happen?
The reclassification started 1700s, 1800s. This is when you had people from the Census Bureau was going out and was taking account of who was in different geographical locations here in the Americas. They would then go back and record people as free persons of color, colored, Negro, mulatto, so on and so forth. The Europeans had a specific nomenclature, all right, a classification of how to name things. This goes back to, you could look at a Swedish scientist, his name was Carl van Linnaeus.
And Jonan Blumenblatt too.
And Jonan Blumenblatt. What they did in Europe was they created a social classification status, right? They identified Asians as yellow, Africans as black, Americans as red, and European as white people. They created this color class system, all right? And by them creating this caste system, they were able to keep you in a specific social status. Once they started to set up places, things like the Bureau of Vital Statistics under Walter Plecker, now they started putting on documents, your birth certificate, so on and so forth. You're classified as Negro, black, colored. This came from the Europeans. They first used this in India, this social caste system. They used it in India. So you had certain Indians who were classified as quote unquote white.
And they were dark.
And they were dark. And certain ones that were of a poor economic status, they were classified as black, Negro, whatever the case may be.
Color.
And they were the same complexion. You see what I'm saying? That's why in North Africa to this day, you have individuals like Mustafa Hefni, who's from North Africa, who's darker than me, but his social political status is white. Because free white persons was a legal classification. It was a legal status. You see what I'm saying? We got caught up in this. Now, when you look at the Sunji Free Moors Act, right? The Sunji Free Moors Act, some dark-skinned Moors in South Carolina were obtained, and they were being classified as Negroes, black people. They went to court, and they said that we're not Negroes, we're Moors, we're of a royal nobility. They went to court, and because they knew who they were, and because there were treaties in place stating that you could not enslave a Moor, they were free and classified as free white persons. So the European had to realize the way we have to enslave indigenous people is to take away their nationality and reclassify them. Because then they set up laws like the Negro Act and the Christian Black Slave Codes to put you under those laws where you consider to be what? Chattel property.
Subjugated.
Subjugated. Now you're not that free Moor. You're not that Kitiwa. You're not that Cherokee. You're not that Lenape. You're a colored person.
You're not a part of a no tribal nation.
You're not part of no tribal nation. This is the importance of the Moorish Scientific Americas. Now, if you're Cherokee, right? I'm Choctaw. He's Seminole. Now we could come under one political body collectively. You see what I'm saying?
Because the Europeans put it outside of those tribal nations, because you got like the $5 Indians, where these Europeans brought their way into these tribes. So people like us, who's the indigenous people, we can't get into those tribes because they brought into those tribes.
By where the doors roll.
By where the doors roll. So the purpose of Prophet Noble Drew Ali was to create a political banner for those who were out of that social construct of those tribes, that we could come under one political umbrella.
A body politic.
A body politic. Because we was outside of that body politic, because the pale-skinned Europeans, they brought into the doors roll and became the $5 Indians. Today, when you go on most of these reservations, you're going to see
they look European.
Pale-skinned people saying that they're Indians or indigenous people, but they're not. It's really us. But due to our classification, we today identify ourselves as black, Negro, colored, but we have reminiscences of our grandparents telling us that, you know, we Cherokee, so forth and so on, and we just listen to that and we like, oh yeah, my grandmother was Cherokee. I got a picture of her hair down to her, you know, down to the floor and everything. But at the end of the day, that's who we are.
And this was intentionally done. When the Europeans got here, there were specific differences in the phenotype of tribes between the Mongoloid nomadic Indian
that came later,
and the dark-skinned, melanated, quote-unquote black, so-called Negro Indian or Aboriginal or mound builder. We would be considered the Aboriginal mound builders. Then you had the nomadic ones who lived in the Midwest, who lived in teepees. You see what I'm saying? The Europeans said, oh, you know what? Let's find a way to subdivide these tribes. Let's get the more Mongoloid ones to intermarry with us, take on European customs, and sign treaties to cede away land, and then exclude us outside of that. You see what I'm saying? Even after Abraham Lincoln passed the 4 Emancipation Proclamations, inclusive of 13 minutes, 20 sections, and the Freedmen's Bureau, we were classified as freedmen. Now, a lot of these tribal members that mixed with the European, right, like Stan Wattie, researcher, his name was Stan Wattie, who was signing these treaties, right? when they signed these treaties and see the way these land, when these treaties was reconstructed, because they had a Masonic covenant with an individual by the name of Albert Pike, right? Albert Pike was one of the top Freemasons here in the Americas, 33-degree Mason. He also started the KKK, right? What he did was he helped some of the tribes.
He was a Satanist too.
Right, he was a Satanist, right. He wrote a book called Morals and Dogma. You decode that book, Morals and Dogma, and you can see he was pushing the agenda from the Holy Crusades, along with the Catholic Church, to specifically enslave Native American Moors in general here in the Americas. That was the agenda, because it goes back to the war with the Moors, the Saracens, and who?
And Hannibal, all of that.
All of that, right. It goes back to that war, going back to the Christendom versus Islam.
And that's happening right now.
It's happening right now. It goes back to that war. So when you decode that book, you can see what Albert Pike was doing when he came here. He specifically handpicked certain Native American tribal leaders, made them Freemasons, had them sign treaties, and then on top of that, he convinced some of them to fight on the side of the Confederacy because they were pushing slave states. Now, it was another group called the Knights of the Golden Circle, which was a fraternal order of European men who were pushing slave states. They aligned themselves with the Confederacy, who also aligned themselves with the KKK. The KKK was like the military for the Knights of the Golden Circle. Now, Stan Wanty, who was of mixed blood, right? He was signing these treaties, ceding away our land against what we agreed upon. We didn't want to do that. So we went to war against the Knights of the Golden Circle, against the KKK, against the Confederacy. You see what I'm saying? Now, in 1866, because the Confederacy lost, Albert Pike was in prison, they reconstructed those treaties. Those are the lawsuits you hear about with the freedmen. The freedmen, which we would be classified as freedmen, right? They're fighting in court as we speak even today for those 1866 reconstructed treaties. For what? For tribal membership, to be compensated for our ancestors being enslaved. But again, this was pushed by high-ranking Masonic Confederate generals like Albert Pike, and also again the Knights of the Golden Circle. This was a secret agenda, and a lot of people don't talk about the Knights of the Golden Circle. But John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated Abraham Lincoln, was a member of the Knights of the Golden Circle.
And Abraham Lincoln was a Moor. He was a Melungeon.
He was a Melungeon.
He was a Melungeon.
Explain what a Melungeon is for those who may not.
A Melungeon is a people who's indigenous, like in Tennessee area, and they got what they got, like indigenous blood, Turkish, Moorish, a bloodline. So they're very dark-skinned people. And when Europeans came in contact with them, they didn't know how to classify them because they'll see one who be like maybe a little bit light, and then his son would be dark, and then the other one would have blonde hair but dark skin. So they couldn't classify them, so they called them Melungeons. But they were really of Moorish descent. And Abraham Lincoln was a Melungeon, he was of Moorish descent or whatever. And we gotta realize too is that we got this idea, is like when they enslaved us, we went to slavery peacefully. Like, okay, Mr. White Man, we're gonna go in slavery now, all right? We was fighting with the all the way to the 1900s. Like slaying them throughout the Americas, you know what I'm saying? Like all throughout, like the Seminole Wars and all that stuff. Like we was killing so many Europeans that they had to have, basically Abraham Lincoln had to have the Emancipation Proclamation. It was not only dealing with North and South and you know what they're gonna do with the economy, but we was actually killing Europeans throughout the Americas. You know what I'm saying? So we didn't go into slavery so peaceful, like they make it seem like these Europeans just came to America and we just bowed down to them without fighting with them. We fought up to the 1900s fighting with them.
The slave system that we know of was not successful. All right? We got to look at the institution of slavery. The institution of slavery still exists today. I'm gonna get to that. Like the brother said, look at the Yamasee War of 1715. The Creek Wars, 1812, 1813, 1814, the Seminole Wars, the war that Washington had against Europeans. but they codified who those people were as Indian. That was us.
They said it was a Negro
fighting
war.
against us. Even when you look at the story of Nat Turner, right? Nat Turner had indigenous bloodline. He was descendants of the Port Hamon, Native Americans of Virginia.
Descendants of the who?
Port Hamon.
Port Hamon.
Of Virginia.
Of Virginia.
He was fighting over his people's land.
This is his land.
The story they told in the movie was not accurate. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of us was fighting to keep our people's land. Now, he talked about Abraham Lincoln. I talked about the 4 proclamations inclusive of the 13 amendments, 20 sections. Which one of those sections say that slavery shall be outlawed with the exception of what?
Exception of a crime.
Of a crime. So before the European got here, let me know what prison systems you had. There weren't any.
That's right.
The prison systems came when the European came. Remember when the Queen of England sent the Europeans over here, she let them out of the jails, the insane asylum. Those are the worst of the worst. Remember gangs in New York, they were all criminals.
Right.
So the industrial prison complex was created here in the Americas when the European came. Prior to that, there wasn't no jails. So the European understood that the only way to continue slavery, even though it was abolished, was to create the prison industrial complex. And they created laws that were specifically dealing with enslaving us and throwing us in jail.
Once you call yourself black, you
by being black. So say for instance, they put a law that, all right, it's against the law for 5 blacks to congregate. This is against the law right here. In ancient time, 5 blacks to congregate, guess what? We going to jail. If you look at a Caucasian woman, that's a crime. You go to jail. So because of all of the revolts and the revolution was going with our indigenous ancestors on this land, because they can never really enslave us on this land, that's why we were taken to places like Europe, Africa, so on and so forth. They realized we have to create a systematic process of slavery, an industrial prison complex system. They institutionalized slavery into the prison system. That's legal slavery.
And once you say you black, you automatically committed a crime.
You already guilty by saying you black.
Yeah.
Like they say, driving while black. You identify yourself as civil mortuus, black. That's a crime. That's why they had the Christian black slave codes. Read those codes and see what you can and can't do. The so-called Negro Acts.
And all of
see
that.
what you can do and you can't do.
Christian black codes. That's why we say. That's why we say according to the black according to science meaning death. We're not talking about the cosmos. We're talking about a political social status that was created. That when you call yourself that term in this political construct, you automatically committed a crime. It's automatically against the law. You automatically civilly small you automatically dead in the eyes of the law. That's what we're talking about. But we can't get emotional because we're talking about legalese.
Jurisprudence.
That's what we're talking about. And it's a fact we're talking about.
The thing is, when like say if I'm teaching about health,
right?
The first thing people want me to do is lead by example, and they want to see a healthy body. They want me to be 80 years old like Dr. Sabi, dropping on my knees, looking healthy.
Right.
So when you teach this and you teach about legalese and the term, and if you call yourself black this, people don't see where y'all benefit. They may agree with what you're saying,
right.
But the thing is, how are you benefiting from this by saying you're not black? It seems as though you're in the same predicament as people that call themselves black.
Right.
So it seems as though, regardless, even though what you're saying is true,
right,
the system doesn't respect the truth. So it's still, don't make sense to the majority of people.
I would disagree with you to a certain degree. I just showed you the Pequot Nation, right? Although they are under the Bureau of Indian Affairs, they're federally recognized. I just showed you people look like me and you who have a casino, who have land, who have all of this, and make millions and billions of dollars a year because they stick to their tribal identity. You see what I'm saying? It's the same thing for the Shinnecock. They just got federally recognized. All that land is theirs. They own that land free. So imagine if all of us was to proclaim our nationality and identify with our tribal lineage, and we took a class action lawsuit to the Supreme Court to reclaim our land, the resources, and we're supposed to be compensated. What would happen if we all did that? We are owed millions and trillions of dollars.
Has your temple ever filed a class action lawsuit to get some land?
We have not, but we need to.
The thing is, we don't know of any temple that has filed a class action lawsuit.
Well, there have been temples, there have been members of the Moor Science Temple who have went to court and have not been tried as Negro, black, and colored, have been tried as a free Moorish American and have had the charges dropped, dismissed. Jack Lee's Bay case. We've had cases where we went to court with brothers from our temple in regards to criminal issues and all that, and they had the cases dismissed in the whole nine. So we have had situations where we had Moorish Americans not being tried as black, Negro, and colored because they challenged what? The jurisdiction. You see what I'm saying? But again, it's strength in numbers. So it's going to take all of our people, whether you, again, Pequot, Shinnecock, whatever the case may be, if we could come all under one body politic, under one free national name, not negating your tribal lineage, you still have your tribal lineage, but we coming under one national political body and take this before the Supreme Court, we can have some. I mean, that's our plan to do that anyway. But we got to inform the masses this is what we need to do because, again, have you been compensated? Have you been compensated, brother? Nah, I haven't. We haven't been compensated. So we're owed money and land. The European is not from here. We're from here. So we're just going to stand and live our lives and not be compensated for what they stole, what was illegally taken away?
What percentage of blacks here would you say came from Africa, what we loosely call blacks?
I would say 10. A little bit less than 10%.
So about 10%.
I say like 80–90% is definitely indigenous to the Americas, because even the small percentage of Africans who were brought here, they intermarried. You had Native Americans being taken from here, like the Pequot, to Africa, to Europe. And again, some of them was being sold back from Africa as Africans to Europe, the whole nine. Now this is the thing. A lot of us get misconstrued about slavery because the first image of slavery to us came through what movie?
Roots.
There you go, Roots by Alex Haley. Right? We saw Roots, we saw Kunta Kinte. They was like, damn, man. They whipping Kunta Kinte ass. He become an older man. They chop his foot off and all of that. That's what made us hate, quote unquote, white people, was that movie. But did you know that Alex Haley?
He plagiarized.
He plagiarized that whole story from a fictional story from Harold Colander, the African. That story wasn't true.
Written by a European.
It wasn't true. The story was falsehood.
Harold Colander.
But what story was true? Let's look at a movie that was true. Amistad. You see the movie Amistad? That was a factual story. Now in that story, how many Africans was on that ship? About 52, 53, right? And on that story, they took over the ship. They killed the Europeans on the ship. The main character's name was Sinbad. Sinbad Pie. They took over the ship, killed the Europeans on the ship. The ship sails to the Americas. They go to court. It goes before the Supreme Court. What happened?
In Boston, right?
In Boston. They went, I think it was either Hartford, Connecticut, or Boston. But the trial went, the case went to trial before the Supreme Court. What happened in that case, Rich?
I don't know.
In that case,
they got separated.
Legally, they said that they're not property. They were kidnapped and they were sent home. They were free to send home. You know what I'm saying? So that's a different story. And on top of that, remember, those brothers from the Amistad case, they were prisoners of war from a neighboring tribe. And they said that those brothers being enslaved was in violation of all international treaties. All international treaties. You see what I'm saying? So if those Africans was, now once you have a case like that, that becomes what's called case law. That means that anytime Africans are enslaved and it goes before a grand body, goes before the court, it goes through any type of jurisprudence, they look at the Amistad case as a record, point of reference, and now you can't enslave Africans. It's against the law. You got to send them back. They're not slaves. So if Africans was getting sent back, who was being enslaved here? It was the indigenous, quote unquote, black people that was here that was being enslaved.
Yeah, they couldn't transport Africans because
they couldn't do it. It was against the law.
So they had to get us from different parts of the states.
Exactly. And again, that was only 50-something brothers. That can't equate to 10, 15 million so-called blacks in this country. Rich, we were already here. They just reconstructed history, said they brought you from over there when you were already here. You see what I'm saying? Paper genocide.
And you won't claim, now you won't, never think about claiming any land because we don't think we're from over here. So if they got your mind in Africa, how you gonna start claiming any type of land over here because you don't think you're not from here?
And they have the amalgamated so-called Indians that mix with the European on the reservation saying they Indians.
The Indians.
But Indian is even a foreign term. That's a term that Christopher Columbus coined going to the Caribbean. He called it the West Indies. Indian is not indigenous to that term Indian is not indigenous to the Americas. That's European nomenclature. That's the term he used to describe people that when he went to the West Indies. Christopher Columbus never stepped foot on North America. Never. So how could people here be called Indians? They never called themselves no Indians.
And when Christopher Columbus went to Haiti and Cuba, he came in contact with Moors. He said that they had Moorish garment on. He said that they had mosses. He said that he had to have an Arabic translator to speak to the Cuban king in Cuba.
Christopher Columbus said that.
Christopher Columbus. You read his memoirs. You could read the book. Yeah, you could read the book called African Presence in Early America, where he talks about how they wore emblems of crescent moons around their neck. They refrained from eating pork. That they had to speak Arabic to the indigenous tribes in Cuba. That they had Islamic names and Hebrew names. And that, because you gotta remember, he just finished fighting against the Moors in Spain in 1492. They come over here. When he come over here, he just left Moorish Spain. He said he came in contact, and he said it was Moors everywhere. When he came in contact with them, seeing that we was already over here already. And these Moors, you understand, when early Islamic Muslims came from like Mali and these different places, when they came to the Americas, they amalgamated with the indigenous people here. The indigenous people said that they thought that it was their long lost brothers coming back.
That's right.
And when they amalgamated with them, they began to adopt Islamic customs and culture. So you had indigenous tribal people who were actually Muslims Muslims all throughout the Caribbean and Panama, all these different places. So when we talk about the Prophet Muhammad said that, you know, these inhabitants of North, South, and Central America are all Muslims, this is the fact that these people adopted Islamic culture. When the Moors or the Mali Moors of Africa came along the Nile Valley, the Mississippi, they came in contact with the Washita there. They amalgamated with them, and that's how you got the Washita. They ended up adopting the name like El and Bay and these different things and having these Islamic names. It was a fusion of the cultures of the two people. You know what I'm saying?
So where did these Hebrew names come from? You said some of them had Hebrew names.
Yeah, because amongst the Moors, you had Hebrews.
By far.
By far, these different things. But don't you know, in Michigan, they uncovered something called the Sabbath tablet in Michigan, where they found an inscription of Hebrew with the name Yahweh on it in Michigan. They got biblical depictions on these tablets all throughout Michigan of Hebrew, because Hebrews was always traveling back and forth from the Americas to the peace brother, from the east to the Americas. So this interacting of us, we was not people that stayed in one place. We traveled.
Right.
You know, we traveled, so you had Hebrew, Egyptians, Moors traveling back and forth. And these are all the same people. They just were under different names at different times. So sometimes you may read about a Phoenician, you may read about a Moor, you may read about a Hebrew. These are all the same people, just classified and called different names at different times in history, but they're all the same people.
That's why the Hopi has the same astrological system and customs as the Dogon of Mali. The Hopi and the Dogon have a synonymous culture and history. You see what I'm saying? Also with the paper genocide, there was another group in Long Island called the Montauk. And it was a judge named Judge Abel Blackamore. He stated that the Montauk tribe was extinct. They still out there to this day. And they related to the Lenape as well as the Shinnecock. So that's like saying he gets federal recognition. He acknowledges and I don't, but we blood brothers.
But we related.
You see what I'm saying? But the paper genocide and saying certain groups is extinct, that was where the European was able to take away land and say these people no longer exist. But what happened was a lot of us just integrated into mainstream society and was, again, reclassified under those misnomers of black, Negro, colored, African American. And with that, I want to read something. This is Statutes on Indian Enrollment, including Title 25, Section 479, provides Aboriginal people shall be considered Indians. Then they were forcefully reclassified as African American, all right? And we know the term African American was made popular by individuals like Jesse Jackson. But if you identified as African American, right? Because Rich, like if somebody saw you, they would call you African American, right? But do you have citizenship in any African country?
No.
Passport?
No.
So we got to be careful with that. We saying we African American, people saying they African Americans, but you ain't got citizenship in none of them African countries. I can't hear you. You try to say we're not from Africa, we from everywhere.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Black race has been around since the beginning of time. We all import that we all from Africa.
Right.
Is that correct?
Sir,
Absolutely.
can I put the cat? Can you say that?
How you doing it? All right, peace, but that's right. Yeah.
All right.
So the brother said right. We from all over. We, you know what I'm saying? But we definitely was already here in the Americas. But again, we have to look at the institution of slavery, because not only are we talking about the prison complex, we also talking about the public school system. This was the #1 agenda, to Christianize indigenous people and to educate them in European culture and the public school system. This was also part of what you call the Indiana Plan. This is what they use on the Ben Ishmael tribe. Incarcerate those who didn't want to assimilate into European culture, put the children in boarding schools, foster homes, give them a good European education, push Christianity on them.
It's the result of today.
When we think about black history and we think about what we call our great black leaders, let me name a few. Garvey, Marcus Garvey,
Right.
Great man.
Elijah
Great
Muhammad,
man, all great men.
Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X,
Right.
Even more recently Khalid Muhammad.
Right, great men.
People don't hear them talk about this information.
Right.
So
Drew that brought this, man.
So my question to you is, these men, Elijah Muhammad, he had that was an intelligent brother.
Very intelligent.
That brother, I've never seen nobody with an impact like that brother on this continent.
Right.
Why didn't that brother talk about information, this type of information, more
He touched
like
on
you
it.
brothers talk about it, but not to that extent? The thing is, people almost think that they were part of their conspiracy because they didn't talk about it that much. So why didn't they talk about it as much as thorough as you're talking about it right now?
Right. Well, you got to look at the mentality of the people at the time. All those brothers, Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, they all had their great ascendants here on planet Earth, and they taught a lot of people a lot of great things at that time, right? We are the resultant children of those particular groups. They lived through us. They did what they did for that particular point in history for our people. Now we have to continue the legacy. The torch has been passed on to us. We come from there. My parents were part of the Garvey movement. His parents were part of the NOI. Khalid Muhammad was his teacher. You see what I'm saying? And we know before Khalid Muhammad was passed, he was studying Moorish science and Moorish history. So they did what they were supposed to do during that period of time. It's up to us to continue with that legacy and to teach the information to the people. Without them, we wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So we can't get caught up in the language, because at the time at Garvey, the term Negro was used, right? But at the same time, a lot of these brothers was also part of different fraternal orders where certain codified information was given to them, but the public wasn't ready yet. You see what I'm saying? Certain information that the public wasn't ready for back then, now is being revealed now, because this is the time to reveal this information.
Talk to me a little bit about, how can I say, some people talk about, you know, since we're talking about us being indigenous here and us traveling, a lot of people talk about us coming from ancient Kemet over here. We have a whole group, since we don't know who we are, we have a whole group who associates themselves with ancient Kemet, who says they're the descendants of ancient Kemet. Is there any connection between ancient Kemet and America?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk to me about that, please.
Well, again, you have one of the oldest known groups in America, known as the Washita de Maya. And the Empress, she stated that they traveled back and forth during the time of the step periods with Saqqara in Egypt, and that they was doing trade with the ancient Kemetic people, and that, you know, they found Egyptian style of writing in Illinois, in Chicago. So it's definitely been Egyptians been traveling over here, and we are the results of that. Cushites and different things, they always come to it. America was like a metropolitan where different people came over here and they stayed and they intermingled with the people here.
Like it is today.
Like it is today. You found very different. That's why you can find statues of Asian looking people that was here. They even got, you know, dark skin looking people. It was them as the metropolitan of very different people. We were the first people here, but people would come over here as like a vacation spot and stay and intermingle with one another. You know what I'm saying? So they've been going back and forth a lot. to the Americas. And one of the terms that they used to, the Asian people called America was Mulampi. Mulampi. That was one of the ancient names that they referred to America as. And the Washington called America Afmorican, according to their documentation, their records, and different things like that. So we've been going back and forth for thousands of years. So yeah, we do share a Kemetic, Kushite, bloodline over here too. If somebody thinks that these tribes was not mixing with another, these ancient civilizations, they've sadly mistaken. So if you claiming to be Kemetic, there's nothing wrong with that, because you do have a Kemetic bloodline, because we're going back and forth. You know what I'm saying? And
I want to build on that. In 1178, it was a Chinese document known as the Sung document, S-U-N-G. And it records a voyage of Muslim sailors to Mulampi, which is AKA America. And they arrived in the Gulf of Mexico as well as Mississippi. So yeah, the brother's right with the Mulampi. They had that was documented on the Sung document.
They call the Mississippi River the Nile of the West, or the West?
Yeah, you read a lot of different literature. They refer to Mississippi the Nile of the West. And
in ancient Egypt, ancient Egyptians, they found in Illinois a person claiming to have uncovered a dynastic Egyptian presence in prehistoric America. Proof of this forensic visitor here are at a little known object. So they found an object in Illinois of like a person like a pharaoh, an Egyptian pharaoh. They found in Illinois in prehistoric America. So they found proof of an interaction of ancient Kemetic people coming to America. They got artifacts in Illinois of these foundings that Egyptians or Kemetic people was actually traveling to the Americas.
In the video I just did with Supernova and Blue Pill, I noticed some people in the comments section said that the Grand Canyon was actually pyramids. What can you tell me about the Grand Canyon? Is there any truth to that?
Definitely a lot of archaeological evidence in the Grand Canyon, pyramids, hieroglyphics. There's definitely a lot of evidence that there was a Kemetic presence in the Grand Canyon, without a doubt or contradiction, absolutely.
And like one of the reasons too, they found a lot of Hebrew biblical inscriptions throughout the Americas, because in 325 AD, when Constantine had their thing going on, they had a division with a man named Arius, who didn't want to agree with Constantine with the concept of Christ and all these different things. Arius was exiled, and his followers left the Mediterranean area and came to the Americas. And they were found, like what they call the Coptics of prehistoric, the Coptics of America. That's why we have a lot of Coptic inscriptions. We know the word Coptic is nothing but Egyptian. So these followers of Arius in 325 AD, who was exiled from the Mediterranean area, they came to the Americas, and they inhabit places like Michigan and these different places, Chicago, different things of this nature. And that's where you got all these different Hebrew, Aramaic inscriptions they found in the Americas. So, and when they came over here, they were interacting with indigenous people. Even though you got a book called The Star of the West,
right,
where Elias Boudinot, he said when he came in contact with indigenous people, they were speaking a form of Hebrew, saying Yahweh, or Yahoo, Yahweh, that they wore fringes. He had a parallel between Hebrew culture and the indigenous culture, showing that it was interacting with the people. Because what happened, just like today in America, we influence other people with our culture, they influence us with our culture. So when they came to the Americas, Egyptians, Moors, Hebrews, Phoenicians, they influenced indigenous people, and indigenous people influenced them. So it was an intermingling of the cultures between one another. So when Europeans came, they saw Muslims, they saw Hebrew culture, they saw Kemetic culture and things that we did. That's what we talked about the Hopi and the Hopi tribes, similar to the Dogon, because it was an interacting going on. So for us to think that we were just isolated in one place and that we didn't share our cultural experience with one another, that yeah, we are indigenous people. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. The slave trade did happen, but it happened to the great extent that it did. For instance, we could just do a common sense. Say I'm a slave and I run away. And they used to have slave catchers who will usually be so-called blacks. If this slave catcher is from Africa, how are you gonna be able to catch a person that he don't even know the terrain or the territory? Like if you don't know, like, can I take you to Africa right now and tell you to go catch him? You never been there before, you don't know nothing about the area? So these was indigenous people who knew their area, who they would use to go catch the slaves that ran away. They knew the terrain, they knew the area, they knew where they were from, because they were indigenous there. You know, we got to think about these things. So we're not denying the slave trade by no means. But the European has exaggerated the story to the point that we don't even want to claim our indigenous roots in the Americas. And that's all we're saying.
And not only that, some of the first slaves that were brought here was European.
Oh, yes.
They was the slave. They was the rednecks that was on the land, toiling the land, things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? So
they made laws forbidding us to even purchase so-called white slaves.
Exactly. And this all comes out of, again, going back to the Holy Crusades, when the Moors were expelled in 1492, and you had the Barbary powers, Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, Tripoli, we was capturing the Europeans on their boats and enslaving them. And a lot of them was being brought here as slaves.
What made the Moors lose power in 1492? The great Moorish Empire.
It was funny, we lost the kingdom, but that's when we went reckless. Like, we took to the seas, because the treaties was like around 1787. 1492 was a long time from there. So people think that we signed treaties because we were in a predicament that we were on a losing end. The European was like, yo, listen, man, y'all kidnapping us so bad, we can't even navigate the seas. So we was like, all right, you're gonna pay us. You wanna navigate these seas? You're gonna have to pay us, you know, annually or yearly, or how they paid us, and they had to pay us money. So we didn't sign treaties with the Europeans because we were losing. We were signing treaties with them because they had to pay us their bread to navigate the seas. And we fought with them all the way up to about the 1800s, right? Absolutely. So even though we lost the kingdom of Moorish Spain, but we still was set to the seas, kidnapping Europeans by the thousands, to the point that we had to make a treaty. They signed a treaty with us, so we don't kidnap them anymore. They had to pay us in gold, up to like $80,000. And they wasn't only paying Morocco; they had to pay $80,000 to Morocco, Tunis, Algiers. So they was losing a lot of money. So during that time, they was like, yo, listen, like, we can't keep on paying this money to these Moors. Like, we gonna have to go to war with them. Because we losing out financially. And that's why you got the letter with the Sultan and George Washington. He was basically telling them, like, yo, listen, like, we know you owe your money.
The letter with who? Say that again?
It was a letter with George Washington and the Sultan of Morocco.
Morocco.
Yeah. And he was I didn't bring the letter with me, but he was stating that basically, like, yo, we a newly formed country, and we don't got your money, we owe you, but give us some time.
George Washington said this.
Yes. We're gonna get our money up, but we're gonna pay you the money that we owe you.
To navigate.
Just to function in America, because we allowed them to set up America as a government. See, when the European broke away from Britain, Britain was a subjugated nation at that time that was paying a tribute to the Moors. Britain, they were paying a tax to the Moors, all the way up to like from the 1500s. So how can European be they break it away from Britain, but Britain is a subjugated nation to the Moors at this time, paying them a tribute. So when the Europeans fled from Britain, from slavery, they was really fleeing from Moorish slavery.
Wow.
And to add on about the defeat of the Moors, you have to look at the amalgamated Moors, or what we call Spanish people today, who converted to Catholicism and Christianity. Those are the ones who assisted the European in our defeat. This is why we lost. When the Moors were in Europe, they had numerous harems, and out of the offspring of that, those amalgamated Moors, again, which we call Spanish people today, who converted to Catholicism and Christianity, they were the ones who united with the European to help in our defeat. You see what I'm saying? Same thing with the Americas. The only reason why we lost our land and all that in the Americas was because our cousins, the amalgamated so-called Indians, unified with the Europeans like Albert Pike, and signed treaties to cede away lands. Again, we were thrown in prison, things of that nature. They took away the land, and we were reclassified as property, Negro, blacks, and colors.
Why would the amalgamated Moors choose that side if we was the winning side? We had the property. Right. Why would they choose sides with the European?
Right, because they were getting bribed. They fell victim to the bribes and to the money and things of that nature, and empty promises, and they fell victim to believing to that social caste system.
That they were better.
Right, they were better. So they were being made master masons. They were being made part of the Knights of the Golden Circle. So that infrastructure of being a mason, taking on this finance, taking those bribes and things of that nature. Exactly. They chose to do that versus being part of the original Aboriginals that were here. That's pretty much what happened. And so as a result, a lot of them are what you call federally recognized under the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And today, some of them have casinos. They making all this money from casinos. They on these reservations, and we out here paying rent. So this is the deal that they agreed upon going back then, to take the finance over the blood lineage of the true Aboriginals that were here. We were overthrown, but all this was prophesized. You know what I'm saying? When you fall away from the laws of the Most High, this is what you call divine retribution. Until we get back right, unify, love one each other, then we can reclaim what's ours and get back what's supposed to be ours.
Now, I want to go back to the timeline because we talking about a lot here. I mean, a lot of information here, y'all. We saying the Moors fell in Spain in 1492. Right. But at the same time, Moors is a broad term. But at the same time, you're saying in the 1500s, Moors still ruled Great Britain. So they lost Spain, but they still had control over Britain?
No, what I'm saying is that even though say for instance right now, we got this block. Yeah. We lose this block. But we hold down the streets. Like you can't drive your car.
You can't drive your car through the streets.
You can't drive your car through the street. We don't got the blocks no more, but you ain't driving. If you want to drive through this block, you have to pay us some. You got to pay us some money, and that's what happened. Even though we fell, we was controlling the seas still. We was the navigators of the seas, and we wasn't allowing them to travel through navigate the seas. They had to pay us. So Britain was being subjugated because for them to navigate through the seas, they had to pay us. That's why we got the Barbary pirates.
The pirates, right. Just like the movie. Did you see that movie with Tom Hanks called Captain?
I didn't see that.
Right. But the premise of the movie is they would take control of the ship. Captain Phillips. They would take control of the ship, hold them from ransom to get paid. That's the more that comes from. They was Islamic.
So for people that didn't see the movie, say that again. What happened?
All right. The premise of the movie they were Somalians, right? Yeah. And what happened was they Europeans and they were holding for ransom to get paid. That's how they make their money. That's how their economy is based off of that. That's what the Moors are doing. The Moors are kicked out of Spain. They took to the seas, the 7 seas, and if you came in that waterway, they would capture your ship and hold you ransom, and you had to pay that money in debt. You had to pay that retribution to the Moors. So they was doing this for hundreds of years.
So that's what we're saying. When the Europeans fled from Britain from oppression, Britain was a subjugated nation paying a tribute to the Moors. So when they fled from Britain, they was really fleeing from Moorish slavery.
When did they stop being subjugated to the Moors, Great Britain?
When they stopped being subjugated to the Moors, probably was like around the the late 1700s.
What led to that? How did the Moors, what led to that?
The overthrowing of the Moors, like far as
lost their power.
The lost their power, far as the amalgamated Moors, overthrowing the dark-skinned Moors, the same thing he's saying, is that greed that happened over here happened over there. The same thing.
It was division. It was civil war against, like, even the indigenous Moors over here. Aboriginal people, there were civil wars within all of those tribes. These people were divided. You had some was like, yo.
We're talking about the 12 tribes.
Hold up, brother, we doing it. You gotta have to wait. Yeah. Hold up. All right, so there was division and civil war amongst these tribal nations. That's why you had some who was like, you know what? Let's take the money from the European. Let's go on the reservation. So on and so forth. And you had some like, nah, I'm not going on the reservation. I'm taking the money. I'm staying right here. I'm not going on the Trail of Tears after the Indian Removal Act. I'm gonna stay right here and fight. But what happened was those amalgamated Aboriginals who choose to take that money actually helped the European fight against us and take the land. That's what happened.
This happened in Africa too with the Moors in Spain. The same exact thing happened. The same thing. The European never defeated us. They wait till we fight each other and then they get down with the winning team. That's when they're going down. You know what I'm saying?
Brother, we're doing an interview. If you're gonna come over, you gotta be quiet, bro. Yeah, it's not.
Give it talk. I gotta drop something on you that a lot of people don't know, but they doing it. The government is doing it right now.
Okay, bro. Hold on. Bro. Yeah. So that's wild. That's a
yeah.
That's a, go ahead.
And so again, with that, you look at Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was able to win that war in 1812 against the Native Americans. All right. Europeans doing what they do. But anyway, they was able to win that war because they had amalgamated so-called Indians helping them and letting them know where they was at, so on and so forth. That's what happened to.
They was called again with the S. They named the amalgamated Moors. They was called the I can't remember their name with the S. The Shemonites,
mixed bloods, right?
The
Shemonites, and they would actually tell where our people were hiding, our war strategies and all that. That's the only reason why the indigenous people here lost the land and lost some of those wars, because they had other so-called Native Americans who were helping the Europeans.
Yeah, them Shemonites, man.
The Shemonites, as far as the strategy, the warfare, the whole nine.
Yep.
That's what happened.
Same thing they did over there in Spain. Sell out
Same thing that happened
thing.
in Spain.
Same thing, man.
You had people who sold out to the European and those who didn't.
So if that's the case, as you speak about unity today, you know, with all these different ideologies and value systems, right?
Right.
How do we come together? When you talked about, you know, the paperwork.
Right.
How do we come together if it's you know, they putting one against each other with different ideologies and value system? How do we come together to sustain what you're talking about?
Right.
From today, you know?
Right. That's a good question. I mean, at the end of the day, first of all, our people got to be educated and agree and understand that we are indigenous to the Americas. We have a bloodline here. That's not to negate our African cousins. We are related. We are related. And if you could see what's happening in society today, if you could see what's happening in society today with gentrification, you can see that we're getting pushed out of our own urban communities. Like I said, the original people of New York City, right here, ODB, the Shinnecock. You see what I'm saying? Those are the original people in New York City. So once we do the research and we can see that we have an indigenous bloodline to many of these geographical locations in America, which one would you rather do? Would you rather pay rent, or would you rather be compensated with your land and get compensated for your ancestors being enslaved?
And it can happen.
It's an easy choice to me.
Because it's tribes.
If we can't unify under that umbrella.
Let me say that it's tribes right now that's getting paid, and it's not even 20 of them. Right, Moore?
That's right, yeah.
So what about the person that says, I have Jesus, I don't need nothing else?
Well, listen.
They can have them, man.
They can have them. Listen, look, that was one of the ways that they continue to
That's our boo.
Right. Because, right. I mean, the churches get millions and billions of dollars from quote unquote black community, you know, on a regular basis. They put those monies in banks run by Europeans. Then they lend that money to foreigners that push you out of your own community and give them loans for businesses. So if you understand how the church system works, it's pushing us out of our own community. What housing programs do the churches have? What political body do they have for us to get the rights that we're supposed to have? You know what I'm saying? So we got to look at all of these things and see how this institutional slavery is not just the educational system, not just the industrial prison complex, but it's also the churches as well.
Well, since Amun brought up Jesus in the church, what do the Moors, the quote-unquote Moors, what spiritual system do y'all have, or what did we have before we got converted to Christianity?
The Moors are not limited to a specific spiritual system. If you was practicing Voodoo and you came into Moorish science, that's not going to stop you from practicing that. We're dealing with a political identity. That's what we're suffering from. So you're not gonna come to Most High Temple of America if you practice in an ancient spiritual system in Africa. We're gonna say you can't do that no more. We're dealing with a political status, and we have to proclaim our nationality for a political status. So like me, I deal with very different schools of thoughts. You know, me and the brother Sufis.
Sufism.
You know, I deal with the Orishas as well.
Kabbalah.
You know what I'm saying? I deal with very different systems, because when you're dealing with a spiritual system, there's no difference in it. It's only a different according to the culture. But when truth is truth, it don't change. So when you're dealing with truth, it all interlocks with one another.
So the purpose of your organization, or the Moral Science Organization, is to get back land, right?
No,
that's not the only one.
Well, I mean, that's one of them, right?
That's one of the agendas. Definitely.
So we're dealing with these Europeans where they have the mindset of a slave master. They have a slave master's mentality, where they're basically saying, nah, we owned y'all back then, we're going to continue to own y'all.
Right.
It's in their DNA. It's inherently embedded in them.
Right.
They don't want you to have anything.
Right.
So, if that's the case, how do we fight against something like this?
Right.
How do we fight against something, and we're being outnumbered? Because you can have millions of dollars, and you might want to buy this land, but you still got to go through them.
Right.
And if they tell you, nah, nigga, we don't want to sell you this.
Go around, please.
If they
Just go around.
if they tell you, nah, nigga, we don't want to sell you this.
Right.
How y'all gonna go about getting that land?
Right.
Let me ask you a question. Like, say for instance, your father left you some money, like $1 million, and you didn't know, and then you found that you got $1 million, would you go claim it, showing the proof that, oh, this is my father, this is my name, and as $1 million here, would you go get the $1 million that your pops left you?
That's minute compared to.
No, I mean it's a point.
Right. I understand what you're saying, but when we talking about acres.
Now you're not. It's a point though. You'll see what I'm about to get to it.
Okay.
I'm just asking you, would you go claim the money?
Of course.
So what I'm saying to you is that go around. Thank you. Thank you, miss. What I'm saying is that it was a law passed. It was called the Fourth Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, which was called, and one of the proclamations was called Compensation and Emancipation Proclamation that was passed. It was made permanent part of the Constitution by 3/4 of the several states. That he said that we supposed to be compensated for being held as a slave, and we was given territory within 22 states between the Allegheny and Rocky Mountains. This is on the books. This was passed into law.
Is that the 40 acres in the mule?
Nah, there's more than 40 acres in the mule. This was.
And with that, I know where the brother's going with that.
You know
that's an excellent point. Hold on, that's an excellent point. I want to make a couple points. One is silent weapons for quiet wars. The reason why our people is in this predicament is not because of guns, because you never win a war because of guns, because you know why? Our people being outsmarted. It's just psychological warfare. Our people are totally being outsmarted. That's why we in the predicament that we are. So with that being said, brother, we at war. You said it's gonna be a fight.
Yeah, we've been at war.
We at war. That's the bottom line. And we at war on all fronts. We at war as far as economically, health-wise. They was putting lead in the water right in Detroit, right?
Correct.
As far as our spirituality, as far as male masculinity, all of that, we at war on all fronts. So it's gonna take a fight for us to get back what's rightfully ours. And if we don't get it, hopefully our children or our children's children get it. But at some point, we have to have a unified front for this particular war that we in. It's psychological warfare. For the most part, our people just being outsmarted. You know why? During the times of Rosa Parks, why they was able to ride the buses? You think it was because they wanted to give so-called black people equal rights? Hell no. It was because they was losing so much goddamn money. So-called black people were walking miles and miles, and they was losing so much money that they said, you know what? We gotta let these goddamn niggas sit where they want to sit because we losing millions of dollars. So how much money do we spend? How much money do so-called black people spend on Jordans, potato chips? Millions of dollars. So how do you shut down these corporations to get what you want? The answer's easy. It's just whether our people want to do it or not. If we don't spend our money in this particular corporation or whatever, they'll go bankrupt. Europeans ain't spending this type of money. Jews ain't spending this type of money. Asians ain't spending this type of money. It's not like we never had no black Wall Streets here in the Americas. It was one right here in Brooklyn, the Weeksville community. You had one in Oklahoma. You had black Wall Streets in North Carolina. But they was dealing with cooperative economics. That's one of the main points, just doing business with each other. That's part of the war right there. But as long as you spend the money with these foreigners, you can't win no war like that. It's the bottom line. But yeah, bro, to answer your question, yeah, we at war. We at war in the judicial system. We see what's happening with family courts and all of that, and brothers getting railroaded with these bogus laws and in jail for crimes they ain't commit. So we need brothers who are swift in law, not just in law.
The law aspect.
We need brothers to. Who's the next Dr. Sebi at? Who's gonna be healing our brothers from? If we're at war, you can't be at war if you gotta shoot insulin up and you got diabetes or you got cancer. So where's the next Dr. Sebi? Who's dealing with that aspect? Who's dealing with the land rights? Who's dealing with the lawsuits as far as freedmen reclaiming black land, back the land that we're supposed to have? We need different components for this particular war. But if we ain't got the people in place, it's a wrap.
The point that he showed the Peacock Nation that look like so-called blacks, they not a big tribe.
No, they not.
But they was able through land rights and things of that nature to obtain their territory, and they are getting paid a lot of money. So what I'm saying is that they did this through law, even though, you know, they do this through the court system.
To lawsuits.
Lawsuits. So we saying that we can't etch that out. What we saying is that when Abraham Lincoln, the law was passed, by 3/4 of several states. That's the free men, so-called niggas supposed to have state, territory in 22 states. It was put into law. It's already passed. If these Peacock Nation was able to do it, why we can't do it? That's all we're saying. We can't negate that aspect. It don't hurt them. What we got to lose a trial? You know what I'm saying? We don't got nothing to lose. So what we're saying is that it was already made into law. We got the certified documentation already about it. We already got the certified documents, right, Moore?
Wow.
All we got to do, why we don't try? We got to try all aspects. We can't just put ourselves in a box. Yeah, you need it. When you want to go before a government like this, you want to have people there.
Yeah.
But that's why I brought up the ideology.
Like a petition.
But that's why
you know what I'm saying?
That's why I brought up the ideologies, because I understand what y'all fighting for, and I understand what we fighting for.
Right.
It's not y'all, we.
Right.
But the ideologies have this individual over here saying, I don't want to be a part of that. So if you're talking about in numbers, we're great. If we don't have enough numbers, how are we going to fight that? Now, when you talked about claiming $1 million, yeah, I can go to the bank and say, yo, that's my people's and my family can go. What we talking about as far as a nation building on that level that y'all talking about is superb.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So if you got so-and-so that's hooked on watching Basketball Wives or
loving hip-hop.
Yeah, whatever the case may be, or they might want to smoke their little marijuana and say, yo, I ain't got time for what y'all
I call it weapons of mass distraction.
Right, weapons of mass distraction. So what I'm saying to y'all is, and I love the purpose, I'm with you 100%.
Right.
But how do we get everybody to unite on that front?
It's like
that you're talking about.
It's like you got to get those who on your page. It's like if me and him want to open up a sneaker store, you want to open up a juice bar. We just not on the same. We just not on the same page. But we got to work with those who willing to work with you. You know what I'm saying? We can't force everybody to be on the same page. But if you could get some who's on the same page you on, y'all got to move forward from there. So that's what we do. We have our meetings, you know, every Sunday at 317 Claremont Avenue. And we discuss these different topics, and we're not only talking about it, but we actually putting in work. It's things that we're not going to discuss on the air right now, but we're doing a lot of things that we're trying to get these things going on. We actually about the work. You know what I'm saying? But it's a struggle. It's going to be hard, but we can't negate any aspect of what we got to do.
I salute you.
Yeah, we can't put yeah, we can't just we can't negate the law aspect. We can't negate the health aspect. We train. You know what I'm saying? Like he trained us and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because you talking about war, but you can't do 100 push-ups. You know, you ain't really talking about war. You know what I'm saying? We talk that talk, but if I come and punch you in your stomach right now, you're gonna fall on the floor. Not you, but in general. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying? But like, we gotta be, you know, well-rounded in all aspects and just don't be stuck in one box. And we're not gonna be stuck in one box.
I definitely appreciate the discussion, man. I mean, it was a long talk today. It was definitely worth it. Yeah. Can't wait to upload it. Any last comments or anything you want to leave the people before y'all leave?
Yeah, you know, again, it was a great conversation. Again, you know, this is based off of Wacka Flocka's interview at, I believe it was Hot 97, some other radio stations. And I just see that a lot of people in entertainment, a lot of our hip hop artists, they waking up. They seeing the truth. And we got to use common sense. You see what I'm saying? We have to claim what's ours. We have to claim what's ours, and we do need a unified front. We need a unified front. Put your differences aside and look at the agenda that we have at hand. Look at what we can have for our children, our future generations. You see what I'm saying? Your grandmother always told you that you was Cherokee, that you was quote unquote Native American. You gonna go against what your grandmother told you versus what the European telling you, that he brought you all here on slave ships? Come on, we can't give him that much power. You see what I'm saying? So we definitely have to reclaim what's ours. We need one political body politic. You see what I'm saying? The history is there, the laws are there. It may take a class action lawsuit before the Supreme Court, but let's do it. We gotta claim what's rightfully ours.
Yeah, in peace. And we want to make it clear that we're not negating our African ancestry. We're not saying that our ancestors didn't come from Africa as well. We're not saying that the slave trade did not happen. We're just saying that it was over-exaggerated to the extent that they make it feel like none of us was from here. So we're not negating none of these things. We are saying that those are our family in Africa. the slave trade did happen. Also, free so-called Africans were traveling back and forth, and we was not limited to one particular part of the planet Earth. So we don't want our brothers to be like, oh, they hate being African and different things like that. You know, we're not in denial of being, you know, being the inhabitants of Africa.
Look like you crazy. Yeah, we filming here.
Well, I didn't realize.
All right, now you know, man.
Okay, have a good night, guys.
All right, you too. Take your rainbow bag with you, man.
So
yeah.
So
one last thing. Why do you think the family that Donald Trump said they don't look like Indians? Why do you think they don't make more of an effort? Individuals that have this land and have benefited from claiming their indigenous heritage. Why do you think they're not more vocal and reaching out to the masses?
Right.
Y'all a couple of brothers from New York holding it down, giving us this information, but we got millionaires that have access to the information.
Right.
We don't see them on YouTube. We don't see them taking TV ads out, or they're not present. Why do you think that is?
Well, one thing we have to look at is that in some cases, right, as far as being federally recognized, that system was set up. The Bureau of Indian Affairs was set up. And a lot of our people were negated out of those particular equations. You know what I'm saying? We didn't get the federal recognition that we were supposed to receive. You see what I'm saying? So we need to step up as a people, and there needs to be a campaign of recruitment. This is what I told my brother Turtle Gang, Naru, Lenape, you know, from the Lenape, things of that nature, because there needs to be a recruitment process of educating our people on their indigenous history as well as nationality as Moorish American. That needs to be instated. That needs to be taught to our people. You see what I'm saying? It needs to be a major recruitment. It's like you see other groups on the corner. You see Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on your door, want to give you the watchtower. You see our Hebrew Israelite brothers on the corner teaching. There needs to be those brothers who do have federal recognition or have understanding as far as indigenous culture. Just like when we was out as Moorish Americans teaching about our nationality and the lessons from Noble Drew Ali, there needs to be a campaign to recruit and educate our people in regards to that. As far as why certain federally recognized brothers who look like me and you are not out in the streets teaching, they're probably content with getting their piece of the pie. They may be content with that. We would have to talk to them about that, but I know they do have powwows. You can go and you can talk to them and things of that nature.
We go all the time.
You know what I mean? We go, but to be honest with you, some of our people reject this notion, Rich, because they don't accept the term "I'm black, Negro, and colored." They don't accept those terms. So when I tell people about indigenous history, Rich, some of our people, they reject that, man. And then some people, again, they identify with African culture. I don't have a problem with that, right? But have you done any type of research that you can show and prove where your family might have descended from?
They did DNA, man.
The DNA, yeah, we know the DNA thing is a scam, the whole DNA testing and all that. Really? Yeah, absolutely. You take 5 DNA tests, you get 5 different answers. You see what I'm saying? But it definitely needs to be a recruitment among our people as far as teaching indigenous history and then showing the relationship between Africans and indigenous people, Moors and indigenous people being one and the same, because it kills me how on some of these federally recognized tribes, they'll say, well, you have an African bloodline, but they're mixed with European. The European definitely is not from here and definitely was enslaving Native Americans, but you rather accept their terms and nomenclature as Indian versus what the quote-unquote African brothers or the Moorish ideology brings to indigenous and aboriginal culture. It doesn't make sense to me. You see what I'm saying? But again, back then they used bribes, payola, you know what I'm saying? People got paid to seed away lands. You have $5 Indians. Today you got the same thing. You know, that may influence, who knows, that might have something to do with the fact they're getting all this money from these casinos. You never know, maybe that might get revoked, that type of situation. You see what I'm saying? I don't know if they told them not to wake up the people, but again, a lot of these federally recognized tribes had a Masonic covenant with high-ranking Freemasons who were part of the KKK. And we know what the KKK agenda was: destroy the quote-unquote black man. That's when you look at the movie. You look at the movie with Nat Turner. What's the name of the movie that was recently done about Nat Turner?
Birth of a Nation?
Birth of a Nation.
Yeah.
You look at the Birth of the Nation was really a silent movie in the early 1900s about the KKK saving a quote-unquote European woman from the quote-unquote black man who was the beast. That's what it really was about.
Right. Yeah.
Now, some of those individuals that are part of the KKK today, guess what? They ain't government. The hood's just off. So they infiltrated government and government legislation.
D, man, once again, thanks for coming out and having this talk with us. It's definitely going to be worth it. I advise everybody to contact these brothers for more information. I'm going to put their information in the description bar. This Brother Rich. We signing out, family. Peace.
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 Came from the Nile Valley. It's bittersweet, I smile sadly. Truth rarely seen like child's daddies. I'm Hotep, I style flashy. Regarded highly, I'm Selassie. As time is passing, tribes are clashing. I know the ledge, I grow my dreads. My queen's two open legs have golden eggs, I'm hatched. 9 months had to hold my breath. Now I dream so heavy that I broke the bed. Provoke the feds that slaughter the sons. 12 get the 4-5 like a quarter to 1. The war has begun. Latin for sun, the soul and Melanites get more of the sun. We the fortunate one. Got the God in the womb and the Lord in my come, and the more means love. Death is the source that I'm from. Everything that they do, we have already done. Self-taught, my ice a melt salt. Mine high price, I write and sell thought. I felt cloth, I cannot in cotton shopping. Aquaponic, chronic options. Botanizing pot concoction. Earth a thought, her twat is rotten. Knowledge of my art forgotten. Watch the conscious sovereign doctrine. Not dishonest prophet goblins. Boxing out the box, I'm boxed in. Black magic, black yoni, black phallus. How they turn kings and queens to crack addicts. How they make us lose our sight like bad glasses. They know we invented original mathematics. Black magic.